So we have kickstarted off the NBA season. The first week is almost in the books. So I asked you guys on Twitter, give me an overreaction for your favorite team so far. So for today's video, we're going to be looking at 30 different overreactions so far in the very small amount of the NBA season that has happened. So I'm recording this before Sunday's slate. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about these overreactions today. If you want to be featured in the next one of these, just follow me on Twitter. Link to that is in the description. I give a lot of NBA opinions over there. And I'm going to go division by division, and there'll be timestamps in the description if you want to jump to your favorite team. So we're going to start off with the Golden State Warriors, who've had a very encouraging start to the 2026 season. Eli mentions that Jonathan Kuminga restored his value completely and gets traded to the underwhelming Celtics for Derek White. This leads the Warriors to win the championship in 2026. So when you look at the start of the Warriors and the Celtics season, maybe there is a chance Golden State could buy somebody like Derek White this year at the deadline, but Golden State, like I said, has been pretty impressive so far. They're 2-1 on the year. Their loss came against the Portland Trailblazers, but it was the second night of a back-to-back, and that's a team you do not want to play on the second night of a back-to-back. We'll get to the Blazers and just their amazing defense later in the video, but Golden State started off with a very nice win on opening night against the LA Lakers. Luka had a Luka-like performance, but the Warriors were able to limit everybody else on the floor, and then they had a very entertaining win on Thursday night where we had that great doubleheader with the Indiana Pacers and the OKC Thunder. That went to double overtime, and then we had an overtime matchup between the Warriors. Curry went off in the second half. He does not look like he has missed a beat this year going into his age 38 season. He is aging like fine wine, averaging 33 points in the first 3 games. Jimmy, Kuminga, Draymond have all contributed for this roster. Al Horford looks like a perfect pickup for them in the offseason, and I think they hit it out of the park with the draft pick of Will Richard. But I would say, just back on Kuminga, it looks like he's buying into the offense a little bit more. He's made some really nice passes, some really nice reads this season. I liked what I saw defensively, and maybe he does completely turn his value around in year number 5. Now we're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns here, and Billy mentions that the Phoenix Suns will face the soul-crushing experience of getting the number 1 draft pick and watching another team use it. So I was definitely bearish on the Phoenix Suns going into the season. I worried about their rim protection. I just worried about their defense as a whole, and God forbid if Devin Booker got injured, I don't think this offense would be able to stay sustainable while Devin Booker was injured. They had a good start to the season, beating a banged-up Sacramento Kings team in a very entertaining game, but then the Suns have lost their last 2 games, getting blown out by the LA Clippers, a team that got blown out by the Utah Jazz. They lost by 27 in Los Angeles, and then they lost to Denver by 22 as well. So far this year, they've given up 116 points, 129, and 133. It's such a small sample size, but they have the second worst defensive rating in the NBA so far. Now, Jalen Green is still banged up, and we'll see when he's going to eventually come back, but I don't think he's really going to help out the defense because that's what needs work right now, and Mark Williams is already day-to-day this year, and you know injuries can linger with Mark Williams. It's kind of been the story of his career so far, and yeah, the Suns do not own their first-round pick. Maybe if it is a seller's market, they could trade away one of their veterans. That was pretty much what I had expected for them going into this season. It does feel like the culture is a little bit different in Phoenix with Bradley Beal in Los Angeles and Kevin Durant in Houston, but I just can't see the Suns making the play-in tournament, and maybe I get proven wrong. Luka mentions here for the Lakers that they are 2 moves away from serious championship contention. The Lakers are 1-1 to start off the year. They lost a opening night game against the Golden State Warriors, 119-109, but then they had a very encouraging win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, 128-110. Luka Doncic is off to an incredible start this year. Skinny Luka may actually be different. He's averaging around 25 shots per game in his first 2 appearances this season. Right now, he's averaging 46 points, highest in the NBA for anybody that's played more than 1 game, 11.5 rebounds, 8.5 assists, and that is a statement win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, beating them by 18, where you were able to empty your bench late in that game. Luka almost had 50 against a good Timberwolves defense that's pretty much at full strength, and doing all this without your second best player, LeBron James, has to be encouraging after a disappointing opening night game, and we all have those overreactions that the Lakers bench may not be good enough to sustain an 82-game season and into the playoffs, and I do think there's going to be some good games from DeAndre Ayton, some bad, same with Marcus Smart and some of these other guys on the Lakers bench, and I do think this person could be onto something. The Lakers definitely need to be aggressive at the trade deadline if they're trying to maximize this window around LeBron James and Luka Doncic in his prime. It may come at the expense of some of the young players, may come at the expense of an Austin Reeves or a draft pick. We'll see what ends up happening, but it was a really nice bounce back win for the Lakers after a disappointing opening night outing. Will mentions here for the Sacramento Kings that their shooting guard logjam is going to lead to incredibly low morale as losses pile up. Veteran guards wanting to win expect 30 minutes a night and don't fit together in Levine, DeRozan, Schroeder, Monk, and Russ, while younger players who need game game experience don't get any playing time in Keon Ellis or Devin Carter. And I find it kind of ironic too, because Doug Christie has said in his press conferences that they want to preach defense. They want to be better on that end of the floor, and the Kings have been fine defensively to start off the year, but they're not really playing one of their best defenders in Keon Ellis, who played 12 minutes on their first game against the Phoenix Suns and then just 17 minutes against the Utah Jazz. At least he's playing a little bit more. You need to give consistent playing time to Keon Ellis because he could be your best defender overall, especially with Keegan Murray banged up. That was a big issue with Mike Brown in Sacramento last year, not trusting Keon Ellis. And maybe we just think he's better than the Kings coaching staff does because now this is a new regime that just thinks the same way. But why are we wasting his talents on the bench? Or same with Devin Carter as well, who was literally a lottery pick in the 2024 draft, who's on the older side as well. I feel like we are just stumping his development to prioritize short-term results in Russell Westbrook and Malik Monk, two guys that aren't really playing defense at this point in their careers. Like, I'm glad Russell Westbrook has a team and he's playing for an NBA organization in 2026, but the Sacramento Kings didn't need another point guard. They didn't need somebody in their late 30s. They just got Sabonis back. Keegan Murray's going to be out for a little bit. Nick Clifford already got banged up with a hamstring injury. It's just a weird dynamic going on in Sacramento. And for the LA Clippers, the Jump Shot mentions here that they will actually commit to the rebuild following an upset in the play-in this season, and Ty Lue gets fired. Now, I know in the NBA itself and all the personnel really respect Ty Lue, and I think he's one of the more highly respected coaches among his peers in the NBA, but the Clippers are off to also a weird start this year. It's probably the most weird performance of the season so far, losing 129 to 108 against the Utah Jazz, who had one of the lowest win season projections going into this year in kind of like a decade. But then they had a nice bounce back win beating the Phoenix Suns. I don't think that's an impressive win by any means. I expect the Clippers to beat Phoenix to be better than them this year. And it's so hard to predict what's going to happen with the Clippers in 4 to 5 months from now. Could they actually enter into a rebuild at the end of the year? I would say that some of their new additions have been playing well, like Brook Lopez and maybe a little bit of John Collins. Bradley Beal has been slightly disappointing so far in his first 2 games as he's entering into a new role in his career. But I will say, Derrick Jones Jr. is learning how to shoot. I don't know if this is going to be a flash in the pan and maybe it's going to teeter off later in the year. We saw like Ryan Dunn last year have a really good start for the Phoenix Suns with this 3-point shot, and then it regressed to the mean. Same with Josh Giddey. But I will say though, keep an eye out for Derrick Jones Jr., who I thought was one of the more underrated defenders in the NBA going into this year. And if he's adding another layer to his offensive game, he may have to play, start, and close out games for the LA Clippers more than we thought this year. All right, let's go over to the Atlantic Division now. And Trace mentions here for the Boston Celtics that Derek White is an all-star, and the Celtics go 21-61, but get a top 3 pick in this year's draft. Now, it would be cool for the Boston Celtics to draft AJ DeBanza, who grew up as a Celtics fan. He is from Brockton, Massachusetts, and the Celtics are 0-2 this year. They lost to the Philadelphia 76ers, where VJ Edgecombe had that historic debut, and then they lost to the New York Knicks on Amazon on Friday night in a game that was close at times, but never really was close that you would like it for the Boston Celtics, who are pretty much at full strength with the roster we expected going into this year. Luka Garza was banged up in concussion protocol. We knew that Jason Tatum was not going to be playing in the first half of the season, but now Jaylen Brown and Derek White are both day-to-day. Derek White is averaging 20 points through his first 2 games. He's been taking 12 threes a night on average so far. He's going to have the absolute green light this year from Joe Mazzulla, with Drew Holiday in Portland, Al Horford in Golden State, Kristaps in Atlanta, Luke Cornett in San Antonio, and with Jason Tatum's health still uncertain this year, when he's going to come back, if he's going to come back, and if this Celtics team starts to slide a little bit, maybe there's a 2-week Jaylen Brown injury, maybe there's an injury to Derek White, they may say it's in our best interest to say it's not our year, we're not going to rush Jason Tatum back, we're going to hope to get a top pick in the draft, and it is a loaded one. We've seen guys like Darren Peterson, AJ DeBanza, and Cameron Boozer ball out in their first exhibition games in their freshman seasons. And what if Boston could just retool their roster, get healthy for 2027, and add a premier talent in the 2026 draft? That would be insane, and maybe that's going to be their goal at the end of this season. Jim Jansen mentioned here, VJ Edgecombe will win Rookie of the Year. Now, going into this season, Cooper Flagg was by far the odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year, which makes sense. He was the most hyped-up prospect in the draft. He was the #1 overall pick in clear fashion. He's still minus odds to win Rookie of the Year, but Edgecombe has now skyrocketed to #2 odds. He wasn't in the top 3 going into the year. He's plus 250 right now, and it's because he's been off to a great start in his first 2 games. I mentioned it before when talking about the Celtics. He had a historic debut where he knocked down 5 threes. He had 34 points, 7 rebounds, and was flying around all over the place. And he had a good game #2 as well in their win against the Charlotte Hornets. The Sixers are 2-0 this year, and Edgecombe was more of a role player in this game. He did take 15 shots, but I thought he made winning passes. He had 8 assists in this game as well, something that we saw he had potential with coming out of Baylor. And I just think Edgecombe is going to be a winning player right now and in the future. He's still just 20 years old. He's still raw as a prospect, in my opinion, and still figuring it out, but he has all the potential in the world to be an all-NBA player one day. And we have the VJ Max backcourt now with Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey. Quentin Grimes is a good role player for this roster. They still don't have Jared McCain healthy yet. You got to be really thrilled about VJ Edgecombe so far if you're a Sixers fan, and he could definitely win Rookie of the Year. This person mentions here for the New York Knicks, Mike Brown is in Coach of the Year conversations after the Knicks secure a 1 seed. I understand the Cavs have a real chance at the finals, but Brown's different offensive-defensive approach will give this team an advantage in the weak East. Hawks and Magic look interesting right now, I guess. I loved what Mike Brown has done so far with the New York Knicks in terms of his rotations, his minutes allocation, with this team also being slightly banged up. Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson did not play in the Knicks opening night game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Karl-Anthony Towns was banged up in that game as well. And we know Mitchell Robinson did not play against the Boston Celtics, but they got healthier in that game as well. And the Knicks are 2-0 this year. The defense has looked really solid against the Cavs and the Celtics, who have their fair share of injuries. No Tatum, no Darius Garland, but I really like what they're doing as a collective team defensive unit. Mikal Bridges, I think, has looked great so far defensively and offensively under Mike Brown. I expected him to be somewhat of a breakout candidate under Mike Brown's new offensive approach. They're spreading out the ball more. I think everybody's getting involved in the right way, and I think some of the younger guys have stepped up as well, like Tyler Kolek and Miles McBride. And this is with Jalen Brunson shooting 39% from the field and Karl-Anthony Towns shooting 30%. And this is with Brunson and Cat shooting sub 40% from the field through their first 2 games. We know they have all the talent in the world to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and honestly go to the NBA Finals out of this Eastern Conference. Like I said, I know Tatum and Garland were banged up, but the Knicks did not beat the Cavs or the Celtics once in the regular season last year, so it's got to feel good for them to at least get over that hump and beat them so far in the regular season. Reverse says here for the Brooklyn Nets that they should trade Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton and just tank already. So the Nets are 0-2 through their first 2 games. I expected them to be the worst team in the NBA this year. They lost to the Charlotte Hornets by 19, and they lost to the Cavs by 7. They made it close later in that game, and we knew that the Nets were not going to try to win this year. They don't own full direction of their first round pick in the 2027 draft, so this was their last year to tank. And Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas are getting a ton of shots out of the gate. We expected that as well. And I do think with Cam Thomas being under this 1-year contract, him signing that qualifying offer made him a very intriguing trade candidate this year at the deadline. I think Nick Claxton could be interesting to some teams as well. I loved what I've seen from Yegor Dioman so far. I liked what I've seen from Day'Ron Sharpe and some of these other young guys in Brooklyn, although we're probably going to get just a ton of Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas this year. Like I said, both those guys off to a great start, but we know the Nets want to lose a lot of games in the 2026 season. They're not going to be able to trade away Michael Porter Jr. most likely, given the high dollar amount of his contract this year and next year, but Cam Thomas could definitely get traded. Terrence Mann could definitely get traded. He's been off to a good start this year, and maybe Nick Claxton can get traded. Henry here mentions for the Toronto Raptors that they are conference finals bound after their start, and the Raptors are 1-1 to start off the season. They beat the Atlanta Hawks, and I thought a very impressive win, beating them by 20 on the road, and a lot of people expected the Hawks to be better than the Raptors this year, and they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks by 6. No shame in that. Milwaukee's still a good team surrounded around one of the best players in the NBA in Giannis Antetokounmpo. I liked what Brandon Ingram did in the preseason. I liked what I've seen so far this year with his shot creation, his isolation scoring. RJ Barrett is off to an extreme start this year, shooting 75% from the field and 42% from 3 on lower volume, which I think is encouraging for RJ Barrett. Take high quality shots, do not force threes. That is not your strong suit. Getting to the basket is what RJ can do best. I will say though, Emmanuel Quickley has been slightly disappointing. We're kind of waiting for that breakout after the encouraging 2024 season with the Knicks and the Raptors, and then last year he was banged up a ton. They still haven't gotten anything out of their first round pick, Colin Murray Boyles. He's currently banged up with a forearm injury, but one of my hot takes this year was I thought that the Toronto Raptors were going to have a top 7 defense. I like their defense so far this year. Most individuals I think have stepped up on that end of the floor, and I like the collective defensive effort as well. They've impressed me offensively. Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Brandon Ingram have been a nice trio at the top. Conference finals bound, I can't really see that, but I can definitely see this team being a top 6 playoff team at one point this year. This person mentions here for the San Antonio Spurs that they are going to the NBA Finals. And there was going to be a lot of overreactions about Victor Wembanyama and his start for the San Antonio Spurs, but rightfully so. He's looking like one of the best players in the NBA right now in just year 3. The Spurs had a statement win against the Dallas Mavericks in their first game of the year on national television, beating them by 33 on the road, and then they took care of the New Orleans Pelicans, who I think are better than some people were giving them credit for. And we'll get to the Pelicans very soon, but the Spurs off to a 2-0 start with De'Aaron Fox hurt, Luke Kornet's been banged up, Kelly Olynyk, Jeremy Shohan hasn't played yet, and Wendy Waters as well, who could be a good 3-point shooter for this team. But Wemby's putting up video game numbers so far this season. He's actually looked a created player in NBA 2K. He had 40 points and 15 rebounds in 29 minutes to start off the year. He played 32 minutes against the Pelicans, had just 29 points in this one, 11 rebounds, and 9 9 blocks. He almost had a triple-double, almost a 30-point triple-double with blocks. It's his Defensive Player of the Year award to lose this season, but I also think Stephon Castle has looked great in year 2. I thought Castle was maybe getting a little bit overrated after his rookie season, given maybe the unrealistic expectations that his fans or some people thought he could reach, but hey, I'm eating my words right now. He's looked great this year, averaging 19 points, 6.5 assists, and the three-point shot is looking good. 36% from 3, 5.5 attempts to start off the year. He's looked great as a downhill attacker. He's finishing around the rim with contact, and I like what I've seen defensively. He's going to be a big piece around Wemby, even with De'Aaron Fox coming back soon. I like what I've seen out of Dylan Harper as well, and we always thought the Spurs could go as far as Wemby could take them this year, and maybe he's going to take them to like the 2 seed in the West. Drew mentions here for the Houston Rockets that they are a first-round exit again and must move off of Reed Shepherd before it's too late. So we all saw the Houston Rockets play on opening night against the Oklahoma City Thunder in a thrilling double overtime matchup. We know Fred VanVleet is going to be out for the year. Dorian Finney-Smith is hurt to start off the year, and the Rockets have really only played 9 guys so far this season, with Clint Capella just playing around 6 minutes a night. So it's really just been an 8-man rotation from Ime Udoka. And Reed Shepherd hasn't been off to the best start in the world. We all saw him on national television struggle to create separation offensively. He struggled defensively and was not getting Kevin Durant the ball late in that game. And then he struggled again against the Detroit Pistons in their 4-point loss. He was better from 3. He went 3 of 4. You like to see that. But 3 of 11 again from the field. And he is really struggling finishing around the rim with his mid-range jumper. And we know he's not a great defender. He's still just 21 years old. And this is his first season where he's going to get consistent playing time. So I'm still not worried about Reed Shepherd. I loved him way too much pre-draft. And I know they are 0-2, but I think they're way better than what their record shows right now. They're going to get more familiar with Kevin Durant in the system. Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson are getting better and better day by day. They're still going to get back Dorian Finney-Smith. Maybe they do end up making a trade this year involving one of their rotation players or Fred VanVleet's salary, but they could definitely be a first-round exit, or they could definitely be playing in the conference finals as well. Dylan McNeely mentions here that Jeremiah Fears is going to win Rookie of the Year and will have a Ja-like impact on the Pelicans for the foreseeable future. So I mentioned how the Rockets are better than their record shows at 0-2. The Pelicans are also 0-2, and I think they're a lot better than this record right now. They lost by 6 to the Memphis Grizzlies, a game they definitely could have won, and they lost by 4 to the San Antonio Spurs, another game they definitely could have won. They're still without Kevon Mooney, they're still without DeJounte Murray, and they didn't have Karl Metkovic or Yves Missi in that game against the San Antonio Spurs, and they almost won. They just signed DeAndre Jordan because their whole center rotation is basically banged up. I got to watch Hunter Dickinson out there, which I don't want to do in the year 2025. But Zion looks like he could be an all-NBA player this year. And I have been impressed, like Dylan here, by Jeremiah Fears. I thought there was a chance he could have spent some time in the G League this year. No, he looks NBA ready for sure. He looks calm, cool, and collective out there. He can get downhill. He's one of the fastest players in the NBA already with the ball in his hands. He's still super young because he reclassified when he went to Oklahoma last year. I've also liked what I've seen from Derek Queen this year. I think there's been some promising non-box score stuff from him on the defensive end of the floor. And if this team can stay healthy, I still think they can make the play-in tournament. This person mentions here for the Memphis Grizzlies that they're going to be a top 4 team when Zach Edey and Ty Jerome come back. Now, top 4 team in the NBA, I really can't go that far. I would also be very shocked if they were a top 4 team in the Western Conference. They are off to a 2-1 start this year. You got to be happy with that if you're a Grizzlies fan. And yeah, this is with some of these guys being banged up in the front court with Zach Edey and Brandon Clark being on the shelf. Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to miss a couple months. Vince Williams has been hurt already, and Ty Jerome is going to miss a few more weeks as well. And I'm going to do a video next on the 2025 draft class because this class as a whole has been off to an insane start this year, and it may be headlined by Cedric Coward, who had a monster performance on Saturday night against the Indiana Pacers, a good defensive team where he had 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. 6 of 6 from 3 this year. He's knocked down 8 of his first 11 threes. I thought he was shaky in his first preseason game, and I think he's been getting better and better ever since because he didn't really play basketball for a full year. He only played 5 games in college basketball last year, and I think he's looked the part defensively as a transition player and as a spot-up shooter. He's 22 years old, 6'6". I think a home run pick here by Zach Kleiman and the front office of the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been a good drafting team in the past. I don't think they're going to be a top 4 team this year. You got to be really encouraged so far if you're a Grizzlies fan, and you can make the playoffs and still get a top 10 pick because you own Phoenix's first this year from the Desmond Bane trade. W10 here mentions for the Dallas Mavericks that Dallas is going to be in contention for the first overall pick. AD, Clay are traded for future assets, and this is one hell of a draft to tank and get Cooper Flagg a running mate and build a young core going forward. So yeah, the Dallas Mavericks have been one of the more disappointing teams in the NBA to start off this season. It hurts a little bit more when Luka Doncic almost had 50 on national television on Friday night. They get blown out by the Spurs. They lose to the Washington Wizards, who are projected to win around 20 games this year and finished at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They lost by 10. Their defense has not been good this year when that was supposed to be their bread and butter. They have the worst offensive rating through 2 games this season. Just losing to the Wizards may have to sound the alarm a little bit. I know that Daniel Gafford is banged up. Kyrie Irving is banged up as well and is not going to play till probably the 2026 part of the season. But Anthony Davis has struggled with his efficiency so far. You're putting way too much pressure on an 18-year-old in Cooper Flagg to essentially be the number 2 for this roster. They have a bunch of solid role players on this team, but they need somebody to help them out offensively with Kyrie Irving out. There was a funny quote that Jason Kidd said, "We're kind of shorthanded at point guard right now." Well, yeah, you had a generational point guard who's currently playing in LA. I still can't believe Nico Harrison traded away Luka Doncic. And maybe if this team is like 10 games under 500 near the trade deadline, they would field some Anthony Davis calls. All right, let's go here to the Northwest Division and let's talk about the Denver Nuggets. This one comes from King and he mentions Aaron Gordon is going to be a 3rd-team All-NBA guy this year. Aaron Gordon in the Nuggets' first game of the season was an early candidate for just how did this guy score this many points? Where Aaron Gordon in the first game of the year against Golden State knocked down 10 threes. He went 10 of 11 from 3 and had 50 points. He also had a solid game in their second appearance of the season where he had 17 points against the Phoenix Suns. And I've been very encouraged as well from the Denver Nuggets bench. I think it's looked super promising so far. I love Cam Johnson in this rotation. I think Jonas Valanciunas, Bruce Brown have given them some solid minutes this year, and even Peyton Watson on the defensive end of the floor, and this is all behind maybe the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. I don't think that Aaron Gordon is going to make a 3rd All-NBA team this year, but he could be an All-Star, and I just want to see an All-Star in Denver for the first time Jokic has ever played with one. It would be cool. This person mentions here for the OKC Thunder, they're going to break the Warriors regular season record. Our core only played 11 games together last year. Chet's taken a leap. J-Dub already did and will be back soon, and Shea will be MVP again, and we still have Kaysen Wallace, AJ Mitchell, Nikola Topic, Aaron Wiggins. We will do it. That could have been a hot take going into this year that the Thunder could win 74 games and have the most regular season wins in NBA history. I mean, they did win 68 last year with Chet missing most of the year. Hardenstein was banged up. Caruso missed 25 plus games, and they're off to a 3-0 start this year, beating some solid teams, beating the Houston Rockets in double OT, beating the Indiana Pacers in double OT as well, and then beating the Atlanta Hawks by 17. A good Hawks team, or at least we thought the Hawks were going to be good this year. And this is with Shea still looking like one of the best players in the NBA who could definitely go back-to-back and win another MVP award. He's averaging 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. I know he's leading the NBA in free throws, but just watch Shea play. He's an absolute superstar. Chet had a bad game too against the Pacers, bounced back against the Hawks. AJ Mitchell may end up winning 6th Man of the Year. This Thunder team has been so banged up. We've been seeing Brooks Barnhizer, Chris Youngblood, Ousmane Dieng, and even Brandon Carlson out there on the floor, and this team is still 3-0. They're gonna get J-Dub back healthy. They're gonna get Isaiah Joe back. Nikola Topic, Kenrich Williams are gonna play this year. I mean, yeah, this team could definitely win 74 games. It's just insane to think about with all the talent in the NBA that this team could maybe break an NBA record. All things Minnesota mentions here that this is the season the Wolves should cash in on their aging veterans for whatever future assets they can get and focus all efforts on adding star caliber talent that can grow alongside Anthony Edwards. Minnesota started off their season with a nice win on the road against the Portland Trailblazers, but then they had a disappointing follow-up, kind of getting blown out by the LA Lakers, a team that kind of got blown out by the Golden State Warriors. So what does Minnesota want to be this year? Is it still trying to feel out what Anthony Edwards is for this team long-term and his role specifically? Like, can he carry this team all on his own offensively, or do you need to add somebody better than Julius Randle as a number 2 on the squad? They made Dante DiVincenzo the point guard. I think he's a very good player still in this league, a good role player you'd want. Jaden McDaniels, I think still has an offensive leap in him, just got to cut down on the fouls. Julius Randle's off to a good start this year. Naz Reid, not as much, and they are kind of going with a bunch of different guys out there, some Bones Highland, some Jalen Clark. You really can't trust Mike Conley at this point in his career. I hope we get Rob Dillingham fully healthy soon, but I could see Minnesota as a sneaky, surprising trade team this year in February to be aggressive for an Anthony Edwards prime playoff run. Brett mentions here for the Utah Jazz, they're going to make the play-in tournament. All right, I hate to break it to you, Brett, but I don't think that is happening this year, and that is just fine. What you want is the young guys to continue to improve, Lauri Markkanen to rebound that trade value, and both those things have happened so far. They had a great opening night win against the LA Clippers at home, and it was cool. You give the home fans something to go happy with. They beat them by 21, and then they lose 1 point to Sacramento. You kind of want that ethical tank this year just because of how loaded it is at the top of the NBA draft, and Lauri Markkanen has been off to a very good start. He's carrying that Finland Eurobasket momentum into the 2026 season, averaging 26.5 points, shooting 55% from the field, 40% from three. I'm telling you, if the Jazz would actually trade him this year, they're going to get so many phone calls because he could be the best player in general that could actually be made available in February. Walker Kessler has looked great this year. He's also knocking down threes as well, which is really encouraging. Bryce Sensabaugh is off to a great start as well, knocking down 43% of his threes, averaging around 7 a night. I think Walter Clayton has shown some good flashes, Kyle Filipowski, Taylor Hendricks as well, and we haven't even seen Ace Bailey get going yet. The Jazz, I don't think are going to have a good record at the end of the year, but they're going to be a fun team to watch. This person mentions here for the Portland Trailblazers that they are going to hire Tiago Splitter permanently after he secures Portland a playoff spot this year. I mean, yeah, it's really tough to overcome what the Blazers have to do right now with their head coach literally being arrested basically like 8 hours after their first game of the season against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They did a nice bounce back win against the Golden State Warriors. It was on the second night of a back-to-back for Golden State, but this Blazers defense is for real. It could be a top 10 defense, maybe even a top 5 defense at the end of the season. And I just love the depth they have right now. They don't even have, obviously, Damian Lillard this year, but Scoot Henderson will be back in a few weeks. Hopefully, Robert Williams could be healthy at one point this year. But everybody has been kind of good for Portland this year, or at least shown flashes of being good outside of Shaedon Sharp scoring. But I like what I've seen defensively from him. Jeremy Grant, Danny Avdija, Toumani Camara off to great starts this year. Drew Holiday's been the veteran they needed on the floor. And Donovan Clingan, I think, is one of the best young rim protectors in the NBA. They have assets that they wanted to make a trade as well. And yeah, who knows what's going to happen with Chauncey Billups. I'm going to assume he's not going to coach in the NBA again. These are some really serious allegations. And Tiago Splitter, man, this would be a really cool story if he turns into a long-term franchise coach for the Portland Trailblazers. We'll go over to the Central Division now. Bucks Realm talks about this is the best Bucks team around Giannis since the 2021 title team. I mentioned in the offseason that this team does have a lot of quantity this year, and the Bucks are off to a 2-0 start. Their offense has been amazing so far, scoring 133 on the Washington Wizards. All right, you expect that, but 122 points on a good Raptors defense. Giannis is still looking like a top 3 player in the NBA. I still think he's the second best guy in the NBA. Ryan Rollins, I think, will step up with the injury to Kevin Porter Jr. Cole Anthony has been a revelation so far this year. He looks like a great scoring guard alongside Giannis. Garrett Trent Jr. and AJ Green are knocking down their threes. Even Kyle Kuzma is playing better in a more limited role offensively, playing around 20 minutes a night, which is good. You do not want Kyle Kuzma playing 33 minutes a night, but 20 minutes a night, he could be a good player. Miles Turner hasn't really gotten going offensively yet, but I love his defense so far next to Giannis. And this team just has a ton of depth as well. They're going to get Kevin Porter Jr. back at one point this year, who's already banged up right now, but Taurean Prince, Bobby Portis, even like Amir Coffey or Gary Harris just provides Milwaukee the depth they need and something they didn't really have over the last few years because they had to trade a lot of the depth to go out and get Damian Lillard. I still think that 2022 team would be better than this year's team, but you could definitely make an argument this is the best team Milwaukee has had since they traded for Damian Lillard a couple years ago. Nate mentions here for the Chicago Bulls that they are going to be a playoff team. No play-in. And this is definitely an overreaction so far this year. Chicago, top of the Eastern Conference right now. They are 2-0 to start off the year. The defense has been great. You would think it would be the opposite. The offense would get going. The defense was going to be struggling. No, they're the #1 team right now in terms of defensive rating in a very small sample size. They beat the Detroit Pistons and the Orlando Magic this year. Those are 2 solid teams in the Eastern Conference. Both those teams were playoff teams last year, expected to make the playoffs this year. Vucevic is carrying the momentum he had last year. Josh Giddey has looked great as well, averaging around 7 assists, 20 points. The 3-point shot is falling. I think Montes Buzelis has shown great flashes this year. Trey Jones has looked great. Like, this team should not want to make the playoffs. They should not want to make the play, and I hope these wins don't come back and bite them because they, and more so their fans, deserve getting a top 3 pick in the draft to take actually a franchise changer in a Boozer, Peterson, or DeBansa. But maybe they can get some maybe they can get some wins out of the gate right now. Hopefully those veterans build up some trade value, ship them off at the deadline, and then hopefully the lottery gods reward you in May. Phil mentions here for the Cleveland Cavaliers that paying Sam Merrill over Ty Jerome was the right choice. And yeah, I thought that was a little perplexing in the offseason because you could have got back Jerome what you paid Sam Merrill, but Merrill has been one of the best 3-point shooters in the league to start off the year, and he needs to step up as a 3-point shooter with Hunter being banged up right now and Darius Garland being on the shelf for a little bit. And we know Donovan Mitchell could be the #1 offensively. We've seen that every single year of his career, but Sam Merrill is just averaging a light 20 points per game to start off the year. He knocked down a ton of threes against the Knicks on opening night, and he knocked down another 6 threes against the Brooklyn Nets as well in the Cavs' first win of the season. I actually think he's an underrated defender defender, and there's a chance he plays more than Max Strus in meaningful games this year if he's going to be a better three-point shooter. And I also like what I've seen from Craig Porter Jr., Lonzo Ball, and Tyrese Proctor, who are basically replacing Ty Jerome in the aggregate. Shout out Moneyball. Young Simba mentions here that AJ DeBanza is going to love Indiana. And going into the year with no Tyrese Haliburton, we thought that the Pacers could still be respectable with Mathurin and Siakam and a maybe Andrew Nembhard leap this year, but their point guard position right now is absolutely cursed. Halliburton out for the year, McConnell was hurt to start off the year, and Andrew Nembhard just got hurt as well. Benedict Mathurin is on the injury report, same with Johnny Cam Jones and Quinn Jackson. And at 0-2 to start off the year, yeah, you could sound the alarm a little bit. Benedict Mathurin is currently nursing an injury right now, which would be scary and put such a heavy burden on Pascal Siakam to carry this offense. Not many other players on this team can create their own shot outside of Mathurin and Siakam. You can get a little bit out of Aaron Nesmith, maybe a little bit out of Andrew Nembhard. But when I was talking about the Boston Celtics and how they can use this year as a retool year and add a top talent in the draft, imagine Indiana can add an AJ DeBanza on the perimeter, or Darren Peterson in the backcourt with Halliburton, or Cameron Boozer with Siakam in the frontcourt. That would be unreal. And maybe that's the route they end up taking this year. We'll see though. CC mentions here for the Detroit Pistons, instead of trading for Lauri Markkanen, they will make a trade actually for Bryce Sensabaugh and Walker Kessler at the deadline and make a top 3 spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, I don't think that Utah's going to trade Sensabaugh. Definitely not Kessler. At least they shouldn't. Markkanen, I think, would be a perfect trade target in Detroit. 1-1 to start off the year, a nice win against the Houston Rockets. They struggled against the Chicago Bulls offensively. And I think at times this year, they're going to struggle a little bit to generate offense when Cade Cunningham is on the bench. And if Cade Cunningham had to miss any time this year, I really worry about their offense in general. Now, Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, I think are going to be great complementary pieces to Cade, but they kind of need that 1B or that number 2 scoring option to take a little bit of the load off of Cade Cunningham's usage this season. They need the veterans to play better in LeVert, Robinson, and Harris, and I think they will. But I would keep an eye on the Pistons to maybe make a big trade this year to get a better number 2 if they can't really trust Jaden Ivey's help. All right, our last division here, the Southeast Division. We're going to talk about the Washington Wizards. This person mentions Keyshawn George will be the most improved player this season and average over 16 points per game with a sneaky chance for an all-defensive team. So when I was scouting Keyshawn George coming out of college at Miami, I really thought he could be a solid 3-and-D player in the NBA, but it was going to take a little bit of time. And I thought he struggled in his first half last year as a rookie, as most rookies do, but he had a very strong finish to the 2025 season. And I think when everybody was like mapping out who you'd want to build around with this Washington Wizards young core, you would definitely mention Trey Johnson, Alex Sarr, maybe even Bilal Coulibaly and Bub Carrington over Keyshawn George going into the year. Is Keyshawn George maybe the most intriguing young player on this Wizards roster now? He's been off to an amazing start this year after having a very encouraging summer league and preseason. In his first game this year against the Milwaukee Bucks, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, playing good defense. And then in their second game this year, they won against the Dallas Mavericks in a little bit of a shocking result. He had 34 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, knocked down 7 threes, and is playing good defense. Keyshawn George is still just 21 years old. He's fluid with the ball in his hands. He looks a lot better than he did at Miami. He's becoming more confident, just more skilled in general. And yeah, let me know, Wizards fans or you guys, do you think you would now build this team around Keyshawn George, or is that a little bit of an overreaction? Melo mentions here for the Charlotte Hornets that they may actually be a good basketball team. The Hornets started off with a win this year, beating the Brooklyn Nets, and they lost to the Philadelphia 76ers in a close game. And it sucks that Brandon Miller is already banged up this year. That's always going to be the thing that was going to hold the Hornets back this season, or at least their offense. I thought they were going to be a great offensive team, but a bad defensive team. They've actually been all right defensively so far, but it just sucks that Miller is already banged up. I want to see this team fully healthy because they're one of the most exciting offenses to watch in the NBA with their young talent around LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple. I think Colin Sexton has been one of the best offseason additions so far, and I like their big man rotation. There's going to be some good moments with Kalkbrenner and Diabate. There's going to be some bad moments. The Hornets are a fun watch this year, that's for sure. I don't know if they're going to make the play-in tournament, but either way, you just want to see signs of progression from this young core. David mentions here for the Miami Heat, with their new rejuvenated run and gun offensive style, it will lead them to a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And the Heat are off to a 1-1 start this year. The defenses look great. The offenses look solid. They definitely could have beaten the Orlando Magic in their first game, and then they explode for 146 points against the Memphis Grizzlies. Norman Powell is really stepping up with Tyler Hero hurt right now. Bam Adebayo is knocking down his threes. Shout out to Jaime Jaquez, maybe having a bounce back season. Nikola Jovic has taken some steps this year. Simone Fontecchio has given them some really good minutes. And Davion Mitchell had a really strong opening night game against the Orlando Magic as a playmaker and as a defender. I don't think they're going to be a top 3 team in the East. They could definitely make the play-in tournament. Maybe they're a top 6 seed. We'll see. And now we're going to finish off with maybe the 2 disappointing teams to start off the year in the East. We'll start with the Atlanta Hawks. This person says that Quinn Snyder is on the hot seat. And I still think Quinn Snyder is a good coach in this league, but how much longer of a leash will he have in Atlanta, especially if they don't hit their expectations this year? They're just off to a 1-2 start. There is so much time left in the year. That's why these are overreactions. But you get blown out by Toronto, you beat the Orlando Magic, and then you lose by 17 to the OKC Thunder, who are a banged up team, but no shame in that. They're the best team in the league right now. And Trae Young, I feel like, always gets off to inefficient starts to the season. He's still trying to feel out chemistry with the new additions they had in the offseason. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has struggled with his three-point shot, and Jalen Johnson was hurt last year as well. He's still kind of getting back into the swing of things. Kristaps looks like a good addition so far. They just need him to stay healthy. But yeah, we'll come back in 20 games to this, and if the Hawks are not hitting expectations, maybe he's actually going to be on the hot seat. But a lot of people also believe that Jamal Mosley is going to be on the hot seat, and this person mentions for the Magic, Paolo Banchero should be featured in the offense less than Franz Wagner. Too many stagnant possessions with Paolo catching the ball in the high post and at the top of the key. And maybe that comes down on Paolo. Maybe that comes back on Jamal Mosley's offensive schemes. But yeah, Paolo Banchero has been getting a lot of hate on Twitter to start off the season. Some of it is fair in my opinion. Some of it is unfair. You do want Paolo to play a different style of basketball where he's got to realize maybe he's not Kevin Durant or Carmelo Anthony and he should play more like LeBron James. He is such a physical specimen. Get downhill. Use your unreal strength and top tier athleticism to get to the rim. You can handle the ball so well for somebody that is so physical at 6'10", 250 pounds. And he has struggled a lot with his three-point shot this year and his mid-range jumper. Franz Wagner has definitely been off to the best start between the two. I still think the Magic are a good team, but they're 1-2 to start off the year. They barely beat the Heat, then they lose by 4 to the Hawks, who we just said were disappointing, and then they lost by 12 to the Bulls. It's definitely been a weird start for Orlando. I don't want to overreact too much, but in 20 games from now, if they're kind of still around 500, or if they are, Mosley could be on the hot seat as well, when a lot of people predicted him to win Coach of the Year. So that is going to be for me. That is one overreaction for every NBA team so far this season. If you guys did enjoy, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you think of these overreactions down below. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already for more content like this. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.